Hello and welcome to a brand new challenge video. People often tell me that my challenges are too easy, so today I decided to do something far more difficult. I don't know if this will even be possible, but today we find out, can you beat Pokemon Red using only a Mewtwo? Mewtwo is well known for being a bad Pokemon, with some of the worst stats in the game, and its pure psychic typing is notoriously bad in Generation 1, so this is definitely not going to be easy. The rules are as follows. I can only use Mewtwo in battle, but HM users are allowed outside of battle. No items in battle either, but items can be used outside of battle too. Wish me luck guys, this is going to be rough. I start the game and name my character Arima. Normally I'd ask you to comment down below if you get the reference, but I'll just tell you, this is the main character from Your Lie in April. I name my rival A Fool, because that's what he is, no other reason. I replace Squirtle with Mewtwo so that A Fool will have a Bulbasaur. This means we'll be at a disadvantage thanks to his poison typing. I don't know how, but we managed to beat him in a very narrow match. We get the Pokédex and move on to the first gym leader, Brock. I was scared of his Onix and his notoriously high attack stat, but we managed to beat both of his Pokemon with Psychic. Phew, that was a close one. On our way through Mount Moon I picked the Helix fossil. I know if I didn't say which fossil I took you'd all ask. Actually, now I think about it, everyone ask anyway. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Next up is Misty and her water types. Staryu faints to a Psychic, but her Starmie is much bulkier, so it takes a few hits. We managed to knock it out in a few Swifts, winning us the second badge. We get the SS ticket and beat A Fool a couple of times, and now it's time for the third gym leader, Lieutenant Surge. This was another rough fight. First up is Voltorb, who faints to a Psychic. Next out is Pikachu, so I go for Psychic for the knockout. Last up is Raichu, so I switch things up a little bit and go for Psychic, getting the knockout thanks to a critical hit. I don't know how we managed to get through that one. We also get the TM for Thunderbolt, so I teach it to Mewtwo. We arrive in Celadon City and take on the fourth gym leader, Erica. First up is Victory Bell, so I go for Psychic and get the knockout. Next up is Tangela, so I go for Psychic, and it's enough to KO. Erica's last Pokemon is Vileplume, I go for Psychic, and much to my surprise it's enough to KO, winning us the fight. We beat Team Rocket in the game corner and scale the Lavender Tower. After all that we travel to Fuchsia City and face the fifth gym leader, Koga. As you know, Mewtwo struggles against poison types, so I was really scared going into this fight. First up is Coughing, so I go for Psychic for the knockout. Next up is Muck, so I go for Psychic, and it's enough to KO. Next up is another Coughing, which goes down to a Psychic. Koga's last Pokemon is a Weezing, so I pull out my secret weapon and hit it with a Psychic, knocking it out from full health. We get the fifth gym badge and move on to Saffron City to take down Team Rocket once again. We're challenged by A Fool once again, but we're able to beat him thanks to Psychic. We're able to beat Giovanni too somehow, so now it's time for the sixth gym leader, Sabrina. She leads with Kadabra, so I hit with a Thunderbolt. We get a lucky paralysis too, so we're able to knock it out in 2 hits. Next up is Mr. Mime, who also goes down in 2 Thunderbolts. Next up is Venomoth, so I go for Psychic and take it out. Sabrina's last Pokemon is ALAKAZAM, so I hit a few Thunderbolts. She heals a few times with Recover, but eventually we're able to take the win. That was really close. We surf to Cinnabar Island and face our next challenge, the 7th gym leader, Blaine. First up is Growlithe, so I go for Psychic for the knockout. Next out is PONYTA, who also goes down to a Psychic. Next up is Rapidash, so after thinking about it really hard, I decide to go for Psychic, which is enough to knock it out. Blaine's last Pokemon is Arcanine, so I go for Psychic this time. It takes 2 hits, but we knock it out for the win. It's time for the 8th and final gym leader, and it's none other than Giovanni himself. His first Pokemon, Rhyhorn, goes down to a single Confusion thanks to a lucky critical hit. Next up is Dugtrio, so I go for Blizzard, which I recently learned via TM. It's enough to knock it out from full health, despite Dugtrio's impressive bulk. Next up is Nidoqueen, so I go for Psychic, and it's enough to knock it out from full health too. Nidoking is out next, and it suffers the same fate as Nidoqueen, fainting to a single Psychic. Giovanni's last Pokemon is Rhydon, so I go for Blizzard, and much to my surprise, it's actually enough to one-hit KO, winning us the final gym badge. I can't believe we've made it this far. We beat A Fool once again and make our way through Victory Road. All that stands between us and victory now is the Pokemon League. Comment down below if you think I can win or not. Here's a quick look at our stats. As you can see, they're still really bad, so I think we're going to have a real rough time. First up is Lorelei. She starts with Dugong, so I go for Thunderbolt for the knockout. Next up is Cloyster, so I go for Thunderbolt and it's enough to KO. Next up is Slowbro. I go for Thunderbolt this time and it's enough to take... Fucking hell. Next up is Slowbro. I go for Thunderbolt this time and it's also enough to take it out from full health. Lorelei sends out Jinx next. I go for Thunderbolt and it does a lot of damage. We're hit with an Ice Punch, but one more finishes it off. Lorelei's final Pokemon is Lapras. One Thunderbolt isn't enough and we get hit with a Blizzard. Somehow we live the hit though and finish it off with our strongest move, Confusion. We beat Lorelei and move on to the next member of the Elite Four, Bruno. He starts with Onix, so I go for Confusion for the knockout. Next up is Hitmonchan, so I go for Psychic and it's enough to KO. Hitmonlee is out next, but goes down just as quickly to a Psychic. Next is another Onix, so I go for Confusion, which is enough to KO. Bruno's last Pokemon is Machamp, so I go for a Psychic for a change, and it's actually enough to knock it out too, so we win. Next up is Ghost-type trainer Agatha. Gengar is out first, so I go for Psychic, and it's enough to KO. Next up is Golbat, so I go for a Thunderbolt, and much to my surprise, it KOs too. Next up is Haunter, so I go for Confusion for the knockout. Next out is Arbok, so I go for Confusion this time and take it out. Agatha's last Pokemon is Gengar, so I go for Psychic. Somehow it's enough to knock it out, winning us the fight. The final member of the Elite Four is Dragon Master Lance. He starts off with the best Dragon type Pokemon in the game, Gyarados. I go for Thunderbolt and it's enough to take it out. Next up is one of his two Dragonair, so I go for Blizzard for the one-shot. The next Dragonair goes down to a Blizzard too, so Aerodactyl is out next. I go for a Thunderbolt and it's actually enough to take it out. Lance's final Pokemon is Dragonite, so I go for Blizzard, and much to my surprise, it's actually enough to KO. We beat Lance, and now all that's stopping us from winning this impossible challenge is a Fool. He starts with Pidgeot, so I go for Thunderbolt for the one-shot. Next out is Alakazam. Blizzard isn't enough to KO, but he only sets up a Reflect, meaning that we can take it out with a Thunderbolt the next turn. He sends out Rhydon next, who falls to a Psychic. Next out is Gyarados, so I go for Thunderbolt for the knockout. Next up is Arcanine, so I go for Psychic, as I really don't think I've been using that move that much. We get a lucky critical hit which takes it out. It's down to A-Fool's final Pokemon, his starter Venusaur. We go for one more Psychic and get an insanely lucky critical hit which knocks out Venusaur from full health. We beat the champion and somehow, against all the odds, beat Pokemon Red using only a Mewtwo. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did and comment down below with what challenge I should take on next. Oh, and I hope you've had a great April Fool's Day. Thanks again for watching. Until next time. Mewtwo is a notoriously bad Pokemon with some of the worst stats in the game, and its pure psychic typing. I start the game and name my character Arima. I replace Squirtle so that Mewtwo. On our way through Mount Moon, I pick the Helix fossil. I don't know if I. On our way through Mount Moon, I picked the Helix fossil. I know if I didn't say which fossil I took, you'd all ask. Actually, now I think about it, shit. On our way through Mount Moon, I picked the Helix fossil. I know if I didn't say which fossil I took, you'd all ask. Actually, now that I think about it, everyone ask anyway. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Erica's last Pokemon is Vileplume. I go for Psychic, and much to my surprise, it's enough to KO, winning us the fight. That's so fucking stupid. Right, so that was 45 minutes of gameplay compressed into 7 minutes of script. And that's before I cut all the shit ones out. Right, next up is Slowbro. I go for Thunderbolt this time, and it's enough to take. Fucking hell. Lorelei's last Pokemon is Lapras. One Thunderbolt isn't enough, and we get hit with a Blizzard. Next up is Golbat. I go for Thunderbolt and got. Next up is Golbat, so I go for Thunderbolt and Golbat. That's difficult.